Uh, uh, Thank you very much, Lungile, for that. Um, Firstly, it's really a delight to see you all. Some old colleagues that I haven't seen in a while. You know, this hybrid telecommuting, we've stopped meeting and engaging in person. But I think that the nature of what we're trying to do as far as ESG is concerned and multitude of other projects requires us to meet in person. I know we do have some online, and we welcome those as well. But I think the nature of it means that we need to find our way through this, right? One thing that this is not, okay, and maybe I should clarify it from the start, this is not a CIPC event, right? We are just taking a bit of a coordinating role in order for us to find our way through from a South African perspective, right? So we thought that my team, when we got together, we tried to brainstorm as to who we should get into the room in order for us to find our position as a jurisdiction. And therefore, there is all you, right, and those online, because you are the thought leaders, whether in the private sector when it comes to matters of reporting, we'll get to sustainability at a certain point, or whether you are a regulator that requires reporting to be done in order for us to achieve compliance goals. So the fact that we have what we believe are the best minds in the South African environment when it comes to such matters speaks volumes to the fact that we hope we have a proper 2 days of engagement. This is not going to be us as CIPC. We're just putting it together, right? Because I think that based on the discussion that I've had with a multitude of role players in this particular area, one aspect that's clearly lacking is a centralized coordination of where we are going to as a country. And that is the purpose of the next 2 days. So we hope that all of you engage fully, and we hope that all of you, at the end of 2 days, we all, not only you, but all of us have a clear understanding of what the next role is and what the next way forward is regarding where we're going to with this. I've got a very big problem. Sometimes I go off script. Please forgive me. I talk so much in so many events. My team has said, please, Commissioner, stay on script. So they've prepared a whole lot of notes for me here, because otherwise I can just go on and on and on about it. So we all know that we have the launching of the ISP standards in June this year, and therefore we have the endorsement of the standards by OSCO. That is given. I think all of those in the room clearly understand that now. But then there was a call by the FSCA, probably about a month and a half to 2 months ago, to basically say, where are we going with this? And we believe that CIPC is doing something as far as this landscape is concerned. So we call them a little bit, well, they call a bit of a meeting. There was FSCA, JSE, CIPC, and others. So we had to appraise ourselves as to what is the potential impact of this development on us. So we also contemplated what is the journey we need to embark on to adopt and implement these sustainability standards, and that we need to regulate them. And we had to assess the change management interventions. Most importantly, I think our discussions must deal with that, right? On a very constructive way. I think a lot of us in certain private sector institutions and public sector institutions, we need to find this balance, right? I think most importantly, that is what we want to achieve after these 2 days. So, and the outcomes of such reporting in terms of being tangible and not burdensome is certainly one of those areas that we need to hard and fast deal with the rules around that. So we're cognizant of the prevalent reporting regime in South Africa, in integrated reporting, as we all know, and we look at the interplay between what's happening in King. I see Ansi's here. Welcome. Her and I had a brief discussion yesterday about it as well. Some of us are members of King. And how do we bring all of those aspects into the fray, right? We look at the JSE's sustainability disclosure guidelines. We look at social and ethics committee reporting. And we need to look at what the Companies Act envisage when we're dealing with all of these matters. So as regulators and enablers of the ISB standard, this could certainly impact on our corporate landscape, and therefore we need to leverage off the standard, but also we need to look at how do we improve and enhance accountability and transparency in our jurisdiction. And we all know that that certainly is lacking. When you read every single day the multitude of scandals that we're having in terms of the corporate landscape, we know that the regulation is certainly needs to be enhanced when it comes to some of these matters. So since we've adopted and implemented XBRL, I think many of you are very familiar with that. We adopted it in 2018 as part of our financial reporting tool. We at the CIPC have received over 70,000 unique filings. We're proud of that fact. When we look at the numbers across various other jurisdictions, we see that we're one of the upper reporting jurisdictions as far as XBRL are concerned. I'm a member of XBRL International Board, and we try and look at what is the impact that is having on various jurisdictions throughout the world. So we looked at state-owned and public companies that have reported fully, private companies, the majority, close corporations, so it's a lesser extent, and therefore we try and see how best we can try and improve on that particular reporting tool and how best we can improve those numbers. Even though we are quite pleased with the numbers, when we first envisioned and scoped it out many years ago now, we thought we'll get about 100,000 unique filings, but off the mark now 70% of it, but it continues to grow in that particular area. And therefore, on an annual basis, we revise our taxonomy and we look at how best we can bring in the latest in terms of reporting. The fact that we've received no many, it does demonstrate that there's a significant good coverage on the various types of companies that are eligible to file. And if we adopt the envisaged ISP sustainability disclosure taxonomy, which is due to be published in the first half of 2024, I think it closed today in terms of comments. I know I've got a message from the XBRL board early this morning. We have to look at aspects about mandation, but what do we mandate, right? I think that's vitally important, and I think this will try and shape our taxonomy landscape over the next 2 days, because I know many of you in this room have very strong views regarding that particular aspect, mandation versus voluntary, but also what part of the standards shall we look at in terms of applicable to our jurisdiction. So I'm looking forward to those. The fact that we've had all of this in terms of expert filing, it ties up quite well with S1 standard, which requires sustainability reports to be published at the same time with the financial reports, and we look at that in more discussion as we go forward. Some of you might know that I'm also taking on the role of the multitude of other roles that I have, but I've also taken on the role of the chairperson of XBRL South Africa. And part of our focus now in terms of the horizon is called standardized business reporting, all right? XBRL is just one aspect of reporting, right? We need to look at standardization across the board, but we also need to look at the fact that, and this is clearly also an indication of where we are as an XBRL jurisdiction, is that we need to look at other regulators coming into the fray. All right, FSCA needs to be brought on board, because when we envisaged XBRL all those years ago, when we scoped it out, we said it's a South African issue, right? Standardized reporting is a South African issue across various regulators and across the private sector. And then we took the role to try and bring it in. But when we sold it to, it was an extremely expensive exercise, if you should know that. It's extremely expensive. But the way that we sold it to our then minister and to cabinet when he went forward to put it there, is that we looked at it as part of how we improve as a reporting nation, right? As financial reporting and governance nation. But we have to have other regulators coming into the fray and having their own XBRL programs. It's 5 years down the line now. We don't have Saab, who was at the time there and said, we will do it, XBRL program goes up, it goes down. FSCA, same thing, goes up, goes down. And if you look at what happened all those years ago, it actually started off with the South African Reserve, South African Revenue Service. They were the ones envisaged standardized reporting, but it never went anywhere. And you speak to SARS about it now. I don't know if anybody is from SARS here. But if you speak to SARS now, it's not even on part of their project landscape. It's just crazy stuff. So we need to understand that this is far more than us as just CIPC taking on sustainability reporting and governance reporting and standardized reporting. It must go across various areas and various organizations, whether it's private or the public sector. So we need to shape it. We need to shape how we continue to grow the IFRS taxonomy. We need to see how we deal with sustainability disclosure taxonomy, and amongst other things, what we call extensions, right? And how we extend those to make it more meaningful and to look at improved compliance, right? So XBRL therefore serves an opportune capability to implement S1 and S2 efficiently. Without XBRL, the ISSB digital taxonomy, we are no value to South Africa. How would we implement it? Okay, wouldn't be able to be done. So we have to look at how do we thrive on those opportunities that we currently have for data collection, and also how do we share that particular data in the corporate reporting ecosystem of the country. So in the context of S2, the Presidential Climate Commission has been at the forefront of climate-related policies. And if you just look at in the last couple of weeks, what has been happening regarding that. Once again, the XBRL capability will serve as a good data source for the PCC to track the nationally determined contribution in terms of the country's decarbonization objectives and targets. So there's good alignment between S2 and the PCC's data needs. There's a clear correlation between what is required as far as that is concerned. In March last year, as well, the National Treasury published the South African Green Finance Taxonomy, I'm sure all of you know that, for environmentally sustainable economic activities as part of South Africa's sustainable finance initiatives. So this also serves as a good catalogue for scoping the green finance landscape within the country and to support regulatory and supervisory oversight of the financial sector. And this is amongst other things that we need to achieve in that particular area. When we look at the FRSC, Financial Reporting Standards Council, and I'm glad to have the chairman here today, Prof. Len Kona, which is a statutory body under the department for which we belong, Trade, Industry and Competition, is also key in shaping how we approach the journey ahead of us. So there will be a lot of engagement in that area, a lot of engagement with the Standing Advisory Committee on Company Law, and in order for us to find this unique balance that we're all striving to achieve, right? So we'll be deliberating further with them and with the delegates from the IFRS Foundation later this year, and input from this conference is vital for us to shape that discussion. I think we're having a discussion with them in November, towards the end of November, as put together by the department. So the department is eagerly waiting what we come up in the next 2 days, because as I said, that will be part of what we will be discussing in November, regarding what we will as a jurisdiction want to comply with and what we want to do. So at the ISP standards launch in June, I also alluded to the role of Regulation 43 in terms of the Social Ethics Committee reporting. I stated that as a country, we were quite forward-looking, right? The Social Ethics Committee was quite groundbreaking when it was introduced all those years ago now. All right, I was part of the drafting team, and we were quite shocked when that was thrown into the fray in Parliament, and we had no idea what we were going to do about it, but we eventually came up with something called a Social Ethics Committee. But if you look at what we put in there, it was quite forward-thinking, because some of the sustainability issues that are coming to the fray now globally is what is contained within Regulation 43. Not all of it, but there's certain parts of it that are certainly forward-looking when it comes to what we try to achieve in that particular area of regulating how a company is able to deal with communities, how it's able to deal with the climate, how it's able to deal with the environment, and how it's able to deal with its ethical obligations. So we're at that point now of converging all of it and bringing it together. The ISP standards, in light of what I alluded to earlier, are to a large extent a good baseline for us to centralize who the various government departments have been in doing response to the environmentally changing environment and also into the macro context. So it's vitally important that we look at this, because it's a fragmented effort within government, a fragmented effort when it comes to how we deal with it in various regulators, but also when it comes to the private sector, there's no clear way forward as to how we're going to deal with it within South Africa. So some of the key emphasis is that while the focus seems to be largely on climate-related matters, we should not lose sight of the economic impact and social impact of the journey that we are about to embark on. We have to strike a good balance, all right? That's something that I said in the beginning, between the ease of doing business and investment destination of choice. We have to look at the cost. We do understand that. As a regulator, we don't play, I for one, don't play hard and fast rule to say we will regulate this and we will do this and we will do that. We need to look at the overall picture, right? And that's the reason why I thought we should bring a fine balance between private sector interests and public sector interests, and us to find that line of convergence where we can find our way through it, right? We need to look at effort and speed of doing business, which is vitally important for the work that I do. So our regulatory requirements and interventions manifested through the contemplated adoption of the ISP standard should not impede on the free market trade, but rather complement it and support it. So just take your mindset of the fact that I'm going to be a hard and fast regulator when it comes to these matters. I'm attuned and I'm alive to the fact that we need to find this, right? We need to look at the market conditions and we need to understand it. I'm not going to stand here and suddenly throw this out, especially when it comes to issues about mandation, right? I'm not going to play that role. We're going to find our way through, because this is a South African issue, as I keep stating and reiterating. So at the end of the day, what is largely important for us is to formulate a sound and feasible South Africa Inc. response. That is vitally important, okay? And therefore, we have a lot of work to do in this room and trying to find our way through it. So a value proposition which integrates the need to remain globally competent and relevant while protecting our domestic competitive advantage and maintaining an enabling environment that attracts capital investments and facilitates healthy capital flows. We are alive to that. We're just not a government institution that looks at exactly what is required to be regulated, but we look at the entire environment over there. So over the next 2 days, we will delve deeper into the various components that affect how we approach the contemplated sustainability reporting regime. We'll look at the impact and the burning issues, most importantly impact, I think so. And we'll look at a multi-regulated taxonomy in order for us to deal with that. And we need to bring together all the various moving parts in order for us to have a centralized repository we all can draw from, and where we can all regulate and find data from. So I conclude these remarks now. Also by making a call for nominations for interested individuals and organizations that would like to join the working groups that will be tasked with turning the sustainability reporting regime into a program that can be unbundled into projects to assist with operationalizing the program across the corporate reporting ecosystem in both government and industry. For those of you who are interested in seeing how the proposed sustainability disclosure taxonomy looks like and how it fits into what we are trying to achieve, and how you can be part of the technical working group, and as well as a software service provider panel, please do join us if you have the time. I know it's only Wednesday, but on Friday we're also having a DTIC meeting on the campus at 9 o'clock, dealing with various partners on a technical level. So you can send your teams over, speak to Joey and the team for more information, and if you can't make it, maybe you would like to share it with parts of your teams, you're more than welcome to join us at 9 o'clock on Friday morning. So thank you all once again for availing yourselves for the vitally important discussion. Let's make the most of the next 2 days, and I'll leave you with the last part. We are playing the coordinating role. It's all our responsibility to get to where we want to do as a jurisdiction. Thank you.